Guillermo, I want to start with something that I didn't know, that you started as a young man working in animation, not in live action. You, I think your brother and your then girlfriend were making a movie with puppets. You started the film, did not end well. What happened?
Well, what happened is I had already taught animation and I had done stop motion and claymation. And we were preparing my first feature, and we did over 100 puppets and sets, and we were shooting the first day. I was animating it. We went for dinner, and when we came back, our studio had been burglarized, and they had crushed every single puppet. There was nothing of value, so they stomped every puppet to the ground, and they proceeded to defecate and pee on the floor.
On the puppets?
Yes, which fully prepared me for Hollywood. So I was ready to come and form part of this industry.
So that was your lesson, try live action, not animation.
Yes. But then I came back. I was at DreamWorks for almost a decade, producing, co-directing, writing, and developing 3 series, 8 movies, and so forth.
Mark, I want to ask you about the opportunities and challenges that stop motion present, because there's something that is captured emotionally in performance. And by the way, the animators on this film, I would say, are just as good as the voice actors in terms of performance. And animators generally don't get that kind of credit. But Mark, I want to ask you about how you took the emotional power of stop motion animation, and given that you have limitations, what that presented in terms of opportunities and challenges to tell this story.
Well, first of all, I think Guillermo's first experience in stop motion was so traumatizing. I knew we could probably do a little bit better.
The floors were clean.
Yeah, we were really trying to give agency over these performances back to the animators as much as possible, and we did a whole lot of things in order to make that happen. The first thing we did was we went out and we got the best possible animators that we could find. Another thing we did was we decided to go with mechanical faces as opposed to replacement faces for the vast majority of the characters. And what this meant was that the animators had more control, more nuance. They could breathe into the performances, like in the moment. They could make changes as they saw fit. So, we would brief them and we would say, this is what we need from this shot. We have to hit this. This is what the character's thinking. And because that was the most important thing. It doesn't matter. Motion matters, right, but what the character's thinking matters even more.
And that's what they're thinking, not expressed through dialogue.
No.
There's close-ups of faces that linger on faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the eyes are vital to this. So we always preached eyes first, eyes first, eyes first.
And what are the logistics of a day's shoot? You're on how many different stages? How long does it take to get, let's just say, 10 seconds of animation?
10 seconds, that's a lot.
You're very ambitious.
How many days does it take?
We shot 1,000 days. 1,000.
1,000 shooting days.
Yeah, and we would get about, if all went according to plan, we would get about 3 seconds a week out of our animators. Yeah.
So when the studio says, what do you got? You say, we have 3 seconds this week? And
every morning we would look at 3 seconds, but also we work with over 60 units at the same time.
Yeah.
Shooting consecutively. So.
Alexandre, I was watching the credits go by, and your orchestrations and your instrumentation, lots of violas, lots of violins, and not a lot of things that people bang on or are made out of metal. And I'm wondering, was that part of the inspiration to try to create music through wood instruments as much as possible?
Yeah, this was the idea. Yeah. Pinocchio is a little boy made of wood, and I suggested to Guillermo that we could try and have an orchestra only made of wood. Violins, cello, bassi, pianos, harps, recorders, woodwinds. There's plenty of instruments were just made of wood. Even the accordion is made of wood. So I'm sure nobody notices, but it creates a sound that subconsciously it just reminds you that it's the world of wood that we're watching.
I noticed. Georgina, your title is Director of Character Fabrication, which sounds so industrial, and it's so beautiful and magical and personal. So I want to ask you about that fabrication. These puppets are 1/6 scale, right?
Yeah, they're 1/6 scale, which sort of Pinocchio is around about 9.5 inches tall. And that's all about what is the best scale for an animator to be able to get the best performance out of a puppet. So everything was based around Pinocchio. You know, we made him the perfect scale, and then Geppetto's a little larger. And it also, the scale was really decided with, once we decided we were going to do head mechanics, we needed enough space in the heads to put all of the articulation points in there, and for the animator to be able to actually access those articulation points as well.
So our actor on the panel, Brian, amazing performances. When you are looking for people who are going to work with you, that feels like a very unusual call because A, there might not be a lot of stop motion animators around. B, they're going to jump at the chance to get back in the game. So how do you assemble a cast of animators, and do they bring different skills to different characters?
Starting with the skills, yes, they absolutely do. I think like Pinocchio was probably created by one of our two youngest women animators in the way that they just took him on and brought him to a place that some of my older male colleagues couldn't have done, because they bring new energy to it. So I think that's definitely, so you get the personality as well as you do with a live action actor. You get personalities with the animator as well. How to get them? Well, you say Guillermo del Toro's name and they
come
flocking. Luckily, Portland has become this hub of stop motion animation.
Because of Leica? Or?
With Leica and Will Wellington before that.
And Shadow Machine.
Shadow Machine moved up there because of this talent pool up there. And yeah, as Mark says, we were lucky to get some of the absolute best in the field.
Scott, I'm going to ask you about sound design, because the movie itself is in that kind of odd place between reality and artificiality. We heard from Alexandre about how he orchestrated his players. What were the rules, if any, for you in sound design, and how much was real, how much was created, how much was environmental, how much was synthetic?
You know, the big thing we needed to start with wood. So Guillermo and I talked about trying to find vintage puppets, and we got some of them together, and they started sounding like bowling pins, so they were too heavy. So then I contacted a guitar manufacturer and got exotic woods, and we started putting that together, and we said, okay, this is good, but then Geppetto's got wood clogs, Pinocchio's got wood, some of the puppets have wood. We had a lot of wood. So then at that point, we said, okay, how about squeaks, and how about rubber, and putting metal squeaks in? So anytime you see Pinocchio, it's probably 10 different sounds going on at once. So it never overstayed its welcome with wood clacking. So sometimes, like even the end where he goes, the hands just, and you had to find the right sound. So it wasn't like, yeah, got to get some wood. So there was nowhere for us to hide. Every sound had to be the right sound. And I'd worked with Guillermo on some really big, loud shows. And this was all about jazz. This was all about find the one sound that works, not the 20 sounds, then make up a sound. And just try, in any given moment, it's all about being delicate, working within the story, working against the great music, and just adding that bit of realism that creates a sonic signature for the different characters.
But also the instruction was very clear. I said, we cannot do a live action mix on an animation movie. Yep. I said, we have to be small, and otherwise the sound will sound like a different movie than the image. So in the mix, I would say, give me the names of the track 1, track 2. I said 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, out.
Yeah.
And it's about it sounding the same size as the puppet.
And my last question is about all the things that it brings together that are important to you, about people who have been marginalized or cast aside. You have creatures, spirits, monsters. You have fascism. And you also even have like freak show circus performers, which you did recently.
Yeah.
Did this book speak to you from a very young age? Because it does feel like this is almost a culmination of everything you've explored in all of your other films.
When I saw this was the second or third movie I saw with my mother as a kid. And it was the first time I felt somebody understood how scary childhood was. That's what I got from the movie. But I've been trying to make this particular movie, we started talking about it with Chris Grimley in 2002. And we were fully formed and rejectable by every studio in town in 2008 or 9. Everybody said,
this is before Pan's Labyrinth.
yeah, but
Pans was 2004, right?
Yeah,
This is before
he
Pan.
published it in 2002.
Okay.
We started dialogue in 2004. I bought art from his book, and we started saying, let's do it with the Hansen company. And then Lisa supported that idea, and we went on into trying to make it. And it's very hard to explain to people that animation can be an adult, even if it has comedy or this and that. And they said, is it for kids? I said, no, but kids can watch it if their parents talk to them. You know, which is very different. So it culminates many feelings of mixing things like Pan's Labyrinth and this and that. But it is unique in that animation can access a beauty and a truth that is not accessible in any other form of film. What do I mean by that? We can reach such pinnacles of purity and beauty and truth, and at the same time, they are impossible in the real world. So there's a sense of beauty and loss and truth all at the same time that is incredibly moving and powerful and no other form. And if I may close with this, stop motion is the one animation art that is very parallel to live action. It's real sets, real props, all age, cinematography, movement, linear movement. But I think of stop motion, as Ginger said about Fred Astaire. She said, I do what you do, but backwards and in high heels. So that's the stop motion for you.
And my only hope is that the people who robbed your studio and smashed your puppets have come to understand that puppetry is okay and not something to smash apart and pee
I
on.
wish that, and frankly, better digestion from the evidence that was left.
I want to thank Guillermo, Mark, Alexandre, Georgina, Brian, and Scott, and all of you for coming out. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.